Hello, Internet friends, and welcome to episode number 119 of Final Boss TV, your WoW and game rating show. I'm your host, my name is Adam, aka Bay, and today's show, we return to the meat and potatoes of what I started all these years ago, finally after all that beta period, and getting that nonsensical Mythic World first 14-hour clear out of the way. That was a great episode, though. Last week's episode was Exorcist. You should go watch that. It's on YouTube right now, and iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play Music. But today is Warlocks. There was a poll put up on Twitter. The next show after this will be Rogues, then a pre-BlizzCon show, and then no shows. They'll be at BlizzCon, so there'll be Bay's Takes episodes going up on YouTube. And then there will be a post-BlizzCon show, and then there'll be Mage and Hunter after BlizzCon. These shows are going to be a bit more like super information driven and less about like just like shooting the shit and talking about the class. So each guest I have on today is going to be talking about primarily one spec of Warlock to break them all down. There'll be a little bit of like preamble talk here in a little bit, but then each guest is going to have like a number of questions to get out like hardcore information, like really straightforward answers, and hopefully to future proof these shows going in the future. So what did I say? Warrior? I did not say warrior. Wait, I said demon hunter. But this is going to be the first time we've done this, so we'll see how this all works out in the end. But there's a lot to talk about, so I'll go around the table here and introduce my my demon hunter guests. So first time on the show, Not. Hello, welcome, sir. Hello.
Hello. Do
you have on a pair of shades there? Is that?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fair enough.
We out here.
Fair enough.
Apparently we out here. Apparently.
Not will be talking about mostly Demonology Warlock today, which apparently is a spec.
Sometimes.
Here's Terryn. Hello, Terryn. Welcome to the show.
What's up?
You're gonna be talking about Vengeance today, right? Vengeance?
Yeah, because they do more damage than the spec that I like. So.
Terryn is here for Affliction Warlock today. And then we'll also bring up the caboose. There's Pyro, who suddenly lags out on camera. Why are you doing?
We're not lagging. We're fine. We're good. We're good.
With your weird green tinted room.
Yeah, dude.
And
I had to put the shirt on the lamp, dude. We're making a green old school.
You're talking about Outlaw Rogue today, right?
Outlaw, a little bit of assassination.
Rolling some dice. We're rolling some dice, boys.
Yeah, the re-roll over to Fire Mage. I mean, we'll talk about that.
The in-game reroll to Fire Mage.
Yeah.
Okay. That all makes sense to me. But welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time today to talk about all this stuff about Warlocks. I think the flub almost there was like my brain telling me, make a joke right here. It'll be fine. And then it's okay. But
the joke is Warlock, apparently.
Well, I'm actually kind of glad that the voting happened in the way it did because Warlock is first. And so all the next 4 episodes of specs are all going to be, they're all pure DPS classes, right? So Rogue, Warlock, Mage, Hunter. And I'm okay with the fact that Warlock won because it's been a tumultuous transition from being amazing in Warlords, getting nerfed to the ground, losing old Demonology, getting new Demonology, having Affliction's artifact change right before launch, and like it isn't the same as it was intended to be with the whole soul system, and then you lose Embers. All this stuff happened to Warlock. So, how did Warlocks end up after the trip from Warlords to Legion? And I'm gonna throw it over here to Terryn real quick first because he's fighting the good fight with Affliction Warlocks right now.
So how did we get from Warlords to here? So we first started off, Affliction was the first spec that was released on Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and we had a really weird spell called Reap Souls that did its damage over 45 seconds. Its first tick happened at like 10 seconds, and then it like got cut in half the tick time and over and over and over. And it was really weird. It made absolutely no sense. and we posted a bunch of stuff, and that got changed, and now we have Reap. And you have a lot of people that are upset because it seems like a lot of people seem to think like the artifact right now was designed around that. I don't know. It's been a long, very bumpy road. Very bumpy road.
I thought it was kind of neat that you'd have this, like, your souls fly out of you and you can cross dot them and then they die and then you get little short-term buffs, but
yeah, and the big thing, so the artifact, it's like a band-aid. We'll talk about it a lot more later, but like the artifact, it's like a band-aid for the fact that a dot spec sucks a lot on ads. Like, it's really bad on ads inherently because your dots don't deal all the damage. So it does really well. The problem is now they're in this like really weird balancing act of like, how do we not make the single target bad and their ad damage really good? I don't know. It's a mess.
Yeah. Speaking of not, how did Demonology fare from the trip to Legion from Warlords? You lost something.
Yeah, we lost a few things. Metamorphosis, Demonic Leap. What else did we lose? We lost so many things. Like, I don't even want to list them. To be honest, I don't even care about all that anymore. I'm very much enjoying Demonology in its current state. I don't have any issues with it at all. A lot of people do, because it's like the summon pet, buff pet kind of thing, but I don't think that's really a big thing.
So you think the Demonology, is it... Because obviously what your side of this is, I've watched like brutal stream Demonology, and I tested it in first and second pass, and I was like, it's okay, but is it fun? Are you enjoying it now? You said like you don't care about all the stuff you lost. Is the new Demonology Legion, is it good?
I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's what I played for all of progression, actually, and I don't think I did horribly bad, and I don't think I was underperforming at all. I think the buffs that they did to it was putting it to a level where it needed to be, so I don't have any issues with that.
Fair enough. And then,
I like the playstyle of it personally, so
it's like old Shadow Priest, but like not as terrible.
Whoa! I mean, I never played.
Shade at the Shadow Priest.
Well, I never played old Shadow Priest. I don't remember how it was, but like, I guess it depends. Some people like really micromanaging, and the way why I brought the two of your specs up first, Pyro, whatever, is when I was doing all the testing, it really felt that like Affliction and Demonology were like almost the exact same thing. Like, not to like
similar, yeah.
Not to downplay your Dreadstalkers and your imps and whatnot and your pet, but Demonology has like dots that are animated, and Affliction just has dots.
And you can make your dots explode, so that's fun.
That's true. That's true.
Right, and both can do that.
In a sense, yeah, that's true.
Not quite as fun. App is not quite as fun as that, but.
So it depends on what kind of management you like. And then, of course, there's like the redheaded stepchild of the Warlock specs with Destruction. So how did Destruction go from Warlords to Legion, Pyro?
Oh man. So as far as like core rotational abilities, like, to be honest, not a lot has changed. I think one of the things that has twisted our core in the way that we play the class primarily is the fact that we're now on soul shards. And everyone knew I was going to talk about this because me and a lot of other warlocks hate soul shards. I thought it was kind of unusual that they talked about class homogenization and then they gave all three specs soul shards when embers functionally worked fine. The fact that it's not built on ember bits anymore and it's a chance at a soul shard off of a proc of Immolate or a guaranteed one off of Conflag makes it kind of problematic in certain situations because you can pool, but beforehand you had a pretty good amount of control over generating an ember or something like that. Whereas now, if you're sitting on 4 shards and an ad that you really need to blow up is about to come out, now it's like you could get that Immolate proc and then you're just sitting there. You don't want to Conflag because it's going to be a waste of a soul shard. And you need to use your Conflag to cast faster Chaos Bolts on the ads. So it's like, as far as the core abilities have gone, they haven't really changed too much. Chaos Bolt costs 2 soul shards now, as opposed to the 1 Ember, which I think is okay, but I think they need to maybe make Chaos Bolt hit a little bit harder. But it's a little strange. I personally think the biggest change to the spec is Embers to soul shards, because it's not just a resource change. It really is mechanically a different play style for the class.
Yeah, and there's a weird like RNG window, not only with like the resource management, with like this is getting a little ahead, but like you bring in like Soul Conduit and even like a set bonus in the future, and you can either like feel fantastic and you're just like turreting out these Chaos Bolts, which hopefully Chaos Bolt gets a new spell animation soon because like really, come on, and then or you get like you throw 2 and then you're done. Like there's like a weird flip where it feels awesome and then feels bad sometimes, or kind of like really slow. Noodle Bolt, chat saying. That's, yeah, I don't know. I felt like Destruction was the most straightforward of the 3 when I was beta testing.
It's pretty straightforward, yeah. I think there's little intricacies to it, and I think part of the thing is that, and it might go. We'll get into legendaries obviously as well, but there are legendaries for Destro that can certainly make a really big difference in kind of how you play. So, yeah.
Fair enough. So this is a weird like back end issue right now that has been coming up a lot. Like people have been wondering about this, and I talked about this last night on stream and like a week ago, where and this came up on like Zyronic's stream because he plays both Warlock and Mage, and he switched from Warlock to Mage, and so chat and the community and like Reddit and the forums or whatever else has been all about this is like, we live in this age right now, like preset bonuses, like maybe 1 legendary, maybe if you have a good one, that why is it there is such a disconnect between like why play a Warlock that needs to turret to cast like 98% of their spells, where you can just play a Fire Mage and jump around like an idiot and do like the same damage, because everything is instant cast. And then if Fire Mages get to turret like the Warlocks do, they do more damage than the turreting Warlock. So
it's one of those things where like we can't all, you know what I mean? Like we can't all have our cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? Like we can't have the damage, the damage resistance, and the mobility. Like we can't have it all.
Right.
The thing about it is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little more, is Blizzard says, you know, we want Warlocks to be that kind of like class that can take a lot of damage, which historically, if you look way back, Warlocks didn't really used to be like that. And like stand there and do damage. Yeah. But except that huge period of time. I mean, like way back. And
that one huge period, yeah.
That way back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing is that they're taking some of that resistance to damage and some of those defensives, and they're moving them around on our talent tree so that it effectively takes away some of our survivability and forces us into taking a talent that is like pretty much the only option for rating on the tier at that point. So they're like, we want you to have defensives, but we're taking some of them away.
I'll bring that up on stream right now as we try to future-proof these shows. And if you're watching this episode like months and months down the road, obviously we are only on like patch 703. This is right before the BlizzCon, all the nonsense. So right before Karazhan comes out. So patch 7.1 is coming out very soon. We're 703 rather. And this is the talent change, so you can see it, chat. Here's your talent change for Warlocks. Do you see it? Do you see it? This is live. This is 7.1. Live. So they're moving Demonic Circle to 45 and Demon Skin down to 75. So now what they don't want you to do is on live right now, you can have like Demon Skin and Dark Pact, right? You can be like, you can have that resilience and the tankiness. But now in 7.1, that you can't do that anymore. Because apparently that was too good. So
they want us to be tanky.
Yeah, but they want us to be tanky, but they don't want us to be tanky. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I guess the most egregious here about the whole turreting Fire Mage argument too, I'll go back to Not, is that if Demonology has to move, all you have is like residual damage. I mean, obviously you have your imps and your Dreadstalkers out, but if you're not constantly building, you're kind of like Balance Druid last expansion, where if you can't cast a main spell, you just lose benefit of Eclipse. It's just gone forever. So if you're not building to summon more demons and buff more demons, right? Buff and summon, buff and summon, buff and summon.
Mm-hmm.
You're how do you like? It's just that's the weakness of the class, I guess. Yeah.
I guess so. I don't find it too much of an issue anyway, because I just stand in things and then just cast anyway, and I'm going to continue doing that until I die at 7.1, if that even is a thing. So I just stand in everything and cast anyway, and
Hey,
the
you got-
healers are going to heal me through it.
You got the reduced cooldown on Unending Resolve, so you're fine,
Yeah, 30
right?
seconds of reduced cooldown. So so great. So,
Oh, that's from Thalkio. Yeah.
from the artifact, yeah.
Yeah.
But-
It's
One thing. Go ahead.
no,
but,
you go for it.
I was going to say, one thing to keep in mind about shifting that talent is the fact that once they put Demonic Circle on that talent tree, it's funny because you pretty much took Demon Skin all the time, no matter what anyway, when it was on that talent tree. But when you switch them, like, then you're going to have to pick between Dark Pact and Demon Skin, which you're probably in most situations going to take Demon Skin. And then on that other talent tree, it leaves you with Demonic Circle, Mortal Coil, which is completely useless in a raid. There's pretty much
Literally.
absolutely zero use for it at all, because if it doesn't actually fear the target, which 99% of mobs in raids are immune to fear,
Yep.
then it doesn't heal you, and it doesn't heal you for very much either way. And then Shadow Fury, not only does it have a cast time now, it's pretty much useless unless you can actually stun the target to trigger the legendary CC ring, which is pretty much the only situation where it would be useful. So they're not only forcing you to choose between Demon Skin or Dark Pact now, they're pretty much forcing you to take Demonic Circle as well in raid scenarios.
But they want us to give mobility, and that's how they're going to give it to us.
Oof!
Even-
That's
By
the
giving
best.
us the spell we had based on
Yeah, giving you back what you
Yeah.
already had.
Here, have it back
Yeah.
in a talent.
But
the
all
only
right.
talent that works.
So a couple little questions here real quick before we move on to the Demonology breakdown. I made a guide for Simcraft and Pawn, and I might be making one for AMR's Simulation Craft tool as well. But how up-to-date, because we're sitting here with people that actually work on the SimC module, how up-to-date and how reliable is SimC and Pawn for the Warlocks? I'll go to Terryn on this one. He might know about
Yeah, so I help Gato with things that are hard with Simcraft, and it is relatively accurate. Demo is highly inflated because it's got a pretty state-of-the-art APL going on that does things that 99.99999% of people can't do in game, just because of timing and like perfect execution and stuff. So Demo is inflated, but everything else is pretty accurate, and it's, if I remember, there's only like one or two things that are like weird, and it's like it's they're differences from live, but it's not enough to be like, you know, yeah. The other thing is it's not a clear cut like this is what's good and this is what's bad.
Right. It's a tool to help for sure.
Yeah, like they're not. It's a guide, and it's really good for figuring out, hey, this item sucks, or this item's really good, or why would I
Right.
replace Narlax's something or other that does infinite damage. But other than that, it's not set in stone. Like,
Sure.
It's the standard disclaimer every show, I think, is Sims are good, but they are not the end all be all.
Right. Anything else to add, gentlemen?
No,
Not-
that's... Terryn is the Simcraft guy here, so...
Yeah.
Right, sure. And then how about this goes, I guess this will go to Not, because I've seen your weak auras around.
Uh-oh.
Are there any important add-ons or tools or weak auras for Warlocks? Like for live on Legion right now? You wanna plug your weak auras? Not?
I mean, I guess I could plug them. They're on knotsthoughts.com. It's also on like wago.io. It's like this huge repository for weak auras.
Quick,
And
crash his website right now. Hug of Death.
Yeah, pretty
yeah,
much.
if we all go onto it, it's definitely going to crash, like guaranteed. But I would suggest highly for at least Demonology having weak auras, because there's no way in game for you to tell if your demons are buffed or not, how many demons are out with your wave. Like, it gives you very basic information, and having the weak auras or some kind of tool. There's also some add-ons out there that does it as well, but weak auras is just super customizable, and I would highly recommend using them for sure.
Okay, I'll definitely have a link to Not's weak auras in the video description box below, and of course we'll almost link them in chat. You definitely can. Anything
one
else,
thing-
Pyro?
We kind of brushed over because you kind of mentioned Pawn right there. Pawn is, if you import the proper stat weights, Pawn is great because as far as gearing goes, there's so much variance with Titan Forging and different levels. You can have like 6 or 865 or 870. Like sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. So if you're importing the proper stat weights into Pawn, it's great. The thing that Pawn doesn't do is it doesn't calculate trinkets and stuff like that for you, because that's a whole different kind of thing. That's why we have SimCraft and we use that. So if you're getting the right stat weights for your class, which we'll end up providing for the stream at some point anyway, and importing them into Pawn, then Pawn's great.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I made that YouTube video, like little walkthrough, because I really wanted to get out there that it's not super hard to do. It just takes some steps, and then just keep doing it every now and then. Like re-download the actual, simulation craft itself, the program every now and then, because it has updates. And yeah, fair enough. All right, now we're gonna get into the new sections of the shows where, at least on this one, not every show's going to have like one guest per topic. It just worked out for Warlocks being a really big topic point right now to talk about, is that we're going to go through all of these specs very individually and go over a whole lot of all these different parts and pieces of all the different specs. So I did move the rotational overview optimizations. We're going to do that at the very end. I think that was a good suggestion. I didn't mention that before the show started, but we'll do the italicized stuff. We'll do at the end. So, you and I are going to have a moment real quick here, sir.
Uh-oh.
To talk about all this stuff. Would you care to walk me through Demonology and, like, your talents, good and bad? Like, if there's a cookie cutter spec, or how you could spec differently for different situations, and how things have worked out, and how implosion shenanigans, maybe? No? Maybe? I don't know.
Well, sometimes yes and no. Like, there is pretty much a baseline, like, cookie cutter spec with, like, 1 or 2 talent changes depending on what you're doing. For the most part, like, your talents are going to be tier 15. It's very, like, controversial right now. Shadow Flame is the best by, like, a minimal amount if used perfectly every single time. Perfectly just means that you're stacking it to 3 every single time that the cooldown cycle is up. Versus Demonic Calling, which is like equal on par with Shadow Flame if you're not using it perfectly. And then Shadow Inspiration, like there's very situational uses for it, like very high movement, I would use that kind of thing. But for the most part, you can either go with Shadow Flame or Demonic Calling and do just fine no matter what. The level 30 talents, obviously Implosion is just like your AoE talent, Burst or Sustained AoE. It's kind of the same thing. And then Improved Dreadstalkers is for your single target, and Impending Doom is for like spread AoE kind of thing. It just spawns an imp on the target from your Doom and just goes to town on that one target. Level 45 right now, Demon Skin, that's like the only thing that's usable. Into level 60, it's also kind of controversial, but for the most part, Hand of Doom is just by far the best without anything really rivaling it. Power Trip can kind of compete with it sometimes. But the global save from Hand of Doom is just far outweighs basically anything else in that entire tier, unfortunately. Even though Soul Harvest can have some like shenanigans for like parsing, probably, depending on how like fast the fights get. So we'll see about that in the future.
Just to go over one thing real quick, do you always couple, I mean, because you're going to take Hand of Doom all the time? Like,
yes.
Is Hand of Doom and Impending Doom still a really big thing for, like, any AoE-ish cleave fight? Is that, like, almost a guaranteed thing? Or is there a target amount you're looking for to switch off to, like, Implosion? Because they're both, like...
Like, if your AoE is spread, like, for example, it's on Dragons, like, that's 2 targets that are far enough away from each other kind of thing, and then there's, like, intermittent adds that may not get blown up. So the main thing with, like, Impending Doom is you have to wait for your entire Doom's duration to actually happen. Mm-hmm. So, like, if it's at base duration, that's 20 seconds. It has to live for 20 seconds for it to actually be beneficial. So you have to kind of be situational with that, knowing if the ad is going to live that long, right? So without it living the full duration of Doom, that talent becomes completely useless, right? Okay. So in that case, then you would go with, like, Implosion or just stay single target. Okay. So that's one of the situations, and just Hand of Doom is basically the de facto talent in that tier. There's nothing really that rivals it, unfortunately.
Unless, I guess, unless you need Burst?
Even in Burst situations, like, for example, before they changed Il'gynoth, like, the Hand of Doom saving globals was more bursty than actually having the Soul Harvest up for 12 seconds.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, so that's a thing that's really fun right now. It's basically one talent choice there too. So then 75 is basically just Dark Pact for survivability, and then Burning Rush if you want the mobility. I don't think I've ever talented into Demonic Circle yet, so
Until 2 weeks from now.
until
Or
2
week-
weeks from now, yeah.
Oh no.
Burning
That's
Rush
gonna
is-
be a good meme.
But Burning Rush is also really good on like Cenarius because it removes movement. It like brings your movement to 0, like or to baseline at minimum. So like anything that makes you move at like walk speed, it removes that. So it's really good.
Yeah, good to get out for the Sisters debuff, and
Oh,
but
okay.
for the most part, you can just like Dark Pact and just survive the damage anyway. So
Sure.
yay for tankiness. The level 90 tier is basically synergy 100% of the time, and that's strictly due to the fact that it's a 40% damage increase for everything you cast for like a 50% uptime, like
Wow.
depending on your RNG. So it's very, very, very strong, especially when you couple it with everything else. So, yep, Supremacy is basically like non-existent. You should never really spec that. And then Grimoire of Service, I've seen some people do like okay with it, but it's just an extra button to push when you could just do nothing and get free DPS with synergy, which is up for the majority of the fight anyway. So
Service felt like a cooldown for PvP, and I thought Supremacy was like the de facto like world questing or leveling talent because you get your permanent Infernal, but the Infernal's like not tankier than the Blueberry. So
it's not even tankier than the Felguard is.
yeah, wow, yeah, he's like a DPS AOE weird pet. Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. No, I don't think I've ever spec'd Supremacy as demo, especially now that like I have gear. You can just dot everything, bring it to your Felguard, have it Fellstorm, and then they just die, right? So
Right.
there's no need for a tanky pet anymore. And even if you did, you would just use your Felguard. It's cleaving everything on every auto attack, and you can just heal it for like 30% of its HP every single time you health funnel. So there's definitely basically zero benefit of going Supremacy. So
The 100s
And
then.
the 100 talent is a little bit weird. For the most part, you can just stay Demon Bolt. Demon Bolt is like the signature single target DPS talent. And then it's like followed closely by Soul Conduit single target wise. And then in any basically AoE situation, anything with like 2 or more targets, it's going to be Dark Glare, where it's like in a sustained situation. Or like you need the burst because it comes out every 24 seconds for 12 seconds. So
Yeah, Mythic Plus Dungeons.
Mythic Plus Dungeons, depending on your level and the affixes, it's useful, but for the most part, it's going to be between like Demon Bolt or Dark Glare, I think, for Mythic Pluses. That's what I've used so far. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad they fixed the nonsense of Demon Bolt back in beta when it used to, at least from my point of view, you only see one Demon Bolt, but Demon Bolt used to like fire at
draw from everything. Yeah,
everything. All your demons would get Demon Bolted for some reason.
It still hits if you have like I forget what his name is, but there's the guy from the class hall that you can bring around with him for like garrison resources and stuff. It still hits him, so that's fun.
Oh,
does it?
one of your
Yeah,
followers?
it still hits him. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, it still hits your followers if they're out with you. It's pretty cool.
Huh.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's basically the talent breakdown. For this like cookie cutter spec, it's going to be like Shadow Flame, Demonic Calling, Improved Dreadstalkers, Demon Skin, Hand of Doom, and then 75 is your choice. Synergy, Demon Bolt is the basic cookie cutter, and then you can change the 1 or 2 as needed.
Sure, that looks fine with me. All right, that's understandable. I'm glad that there is some variance because I always am a little bit annoyed when a class like Enhancement Shaman has no variance right now either. So like I like when there's a little bit of switchy swatch, like a little bit of moving around, which is good.
Yep.
So that's definitely there.
Yep.
So now how about the artifact weapon? Let's dive into Thalkiel, the skull of the Minari. So we have an optimal trait path here that'll bring up on screen. You want to walk me through like the pros and cons, the Golden Dragon hierarchy, and the strengths and weaknesses of your artifact weapon.
Yeah, sure. So the strengths and weaknesses of the artifact weapon is basically that it's just a single target weapon. Like Thalkiel's consumption draws health from all of your demons and does damage in return for their sacrifice, basically. So that's our single target like nuke from the artifact weapon. There's only one path basically for the weapon itself, and it's straight up the left side of the tree, and the right side of the tree just sucks for the most part,
Oh.
unfortunately. Well, it's like, it doesn't suck. Sorry, it's all defensives. So in terms of like damage, it sucks. So, you go, obviously you just follow through, go through like Summoner's Prowess, just buffing your demons with Demonic Empowerment is just better, it's just straight stronger. Imperator, just a straight damage buff to your Wild Imps. Then you have a defensive tree, and then you come up to your first gold. Stolen Power is actually worse than the minor traits that follow it, basically. So our best golden trait is the Expendables, and then Stolen Power, and then Thalkiel Discord. That's the hierarchy of our golden traits. So you skip it until later on, basically. Then you just keep going down until you go all the way over to Expendables, and then you get Doom doubled, then you buff Doom even more, and then you can get Stolen Power, and then go down the right side of the tree over to Thalkiel Discord.
That makes sense. It's weird that you actually, I guess Hand of Gul'dan's damage isn't like a big thing because it's so late in the build here. I just noticed that too. So, I mean, a lot of your damage does come. I've seen like, look at logs of Demonology Warlocks, and it's like almost 30% of your damage is just from imps. So it makes sense to focus on them first, obviously. So
so you focus on them first, and then you go back around the tree to get your AoE talent in the tree, which is Thalkiel's Discord.
Right. All right, that looks like it makes.
It's a weird path because you skip golden traits and you go for the lesser traits, but
yeah, you do, yeah.
The Doom damage and the Imp damage is way better, especially in terms of like overall damage compared to the single target boost that you get from Stolen Power.
Might be one of the longest treks before you pick up a golden dragon on any artifact I've seen so far.
Yeah, you get it at like 16, I think, is the first one.
Yeah, it's the 7th point, but obviously got to add everything up all the way around the skull. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think 20 is Stolen Power and 16 is Expendables, and then Thalkiel's Discord isn't until 28, so you have a while to get to that. So.
How about relics? There's always this talk about relics, and I get asked all the time too. Like, is there an eye level disparity where you want like eye level over whatever the trait bonus is, but then are there some traits that you would keep that trait over like a 2-ish eye level jump? Because obviously spell power affects everything, right? The intellect on Thalkiel. So where does that draw a line, and like what traits are really good to make sure that if you can get a relic with this trait, to keep that one?
Yeah, so the best traits are going to be for Infernal Furnace, which is buffing your Wild Imp's Firebolt damage. And then followed that is Doom of Azeroth, which is your Doom damage. And then you're going to be going for... Those are like the two main traits that you want to try to focus on. They're like, I know for a lot of classes, there's like this, like if this is 15 eye levels higher, then it's better than the trait no matter what. It sort of follows that for the Warlock one, but there's like weird times where it doesn't. So for the most part, you can just like go straight to the damage buffs, right? So you go straight to Infernal Furnace, Doom of Azeroth, buffing your Dreadstalkers, like getting the Sharpened Dread Fangs there is also good, and then Mauve Shadows last, and then everything else is defensive talents basically that you can buff. So
right. Summoner's Prowess doesn't have much of a... I guess it scales really tiny.
Yeah, it scales pretty small, and like it is good. It's definitely up there on the list, but compared to where it used to be, like in beta, it used to be a lot stronger, that trait. So they've since decreased the strength of that trait, and it's still up there, but it's not worth like shooting for over all the other ones, especially Infernal Furnace and Doom of Azeroth. Those two are just by far no competition as far as getting the traits up for those ones.
And then is there an eye level disparity though, that like say you have all three, just like to take out randomness, all three of your traits, all three of your relics, are buffing the same trait. They're all buffing your they're all in Infernal Furnace, but they're all like, let's say they're all 850. Are you going to be taking a relic at what eye level bonus, even if it's like a defensive one? Like, what's the eye level difference? Like, is it 2, 3, 4, 5? I mean, obviously, like a +6 would probably be right there. But like, I know each class, like for enhancement shamans, we have like a 2-ish eye level. Where like, the Wind Fury damage is better than 2 eye levels, so we'll keep that. But so, do you have that for Demonology?
Sort of. So like, if you're talking in terms of a non-damage relic, so 850 firebolt damage is worse than a non-damage relic at 870 eye level. So there's like a 20 eye level differential there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably about where the range is as far as that goes.
And not to confuse chat, we're talking about just the flat eye level of the actual relic,
not not
the plus weapon level.
Not the plus, no.
That's always confusing too, because are we talking about the plus weapon level? Yeah, okay. So because actually
the actual relic eye level, yeah.
Because actually, I think in 10 eye levels, relics actually don't even scale. Like it's still like plus 49 and then plus 49 on like and then it goes up by one up. So
yeah, it's the scaling on it is really weird in terms, especially when you get higher up into like the higher eye levels. So
right. All right, legendaries or legendaries as we talk about these. So which legendaries for Demonology are the bee's knees? Which has the most bang for your buck?
The bee's knees of legendaries is, of course, the Demonology bracers. Sindore Spite gives you 30% damage for the duration of your Doomguard or Infernal, whichever you decide to summon. So it busts everything you do. That's your damage, your pet damage, just a 30% damage increase, period. And then following that is the Doom Belt, so that just entails every single demon you have out, you gain 5% Doom damage. So if you're averaging, say, 7 demons per... like averaging 7 demons, then that's just 35% damage straight up on your demons, no matter what, right? Or not your demons, sorry, on your Doom, no matter what. Following that, you have your recurrent ritual shoulders, which is free cast of Dreadstalkers, basically. So it just refunds the cost of your Dreadstalkers. So you need 2 shards to cast it. You cast the Dreadstalkers, and then the game refunds you 2. So it just nullifies the cost of it, which has good synergy with the first talent, Demonic Calling, in the tier 15 row. So it basically turns your Dreadstalkers into a generator instead of being a spender during that time. Whenever it's procced, at least. So, and then following that is like everything else, basically. Those are the 3 that you want to try to focus on getting if you can. So
you Pyro's legs.
Ugh.
Yeah, those are like way down there. They have
oh well, okay. If you want to, okay. Chat got a show. I wasn't expecting that. All right.
Yeah,
wow.
They've got good they've got good stats, but they don't have good I don't really care about things that don't give me damage. So those don't give me damage, so it doesn't matter to me. But
fair enough.
The other thing to note on the legendaries here is that the difference or the synergy between Sindore Spite and the Willifred Ring does not exist, actually, because the bracers have a 3-minute internal cooldown period, whereas the Willifred Ring can reduce the cooldown of your Doomguard. So if your Doomguard gets down to like, say, a 2-minute or 2-minute cooldown from all the demons you summon, you actually don't get any benefit of the bracers at all, because the bracers are still on cooldown, and now you're desynced with everything else, so it's not good synergy at all.
Fair enough. All right. Keeping on gear, how about trinkets? And this is going to bring up another gigantic, ridiculous graph here. Make sure I have the right one on the screen. So
trinkets. Do we have to touch on this? Like trinkets.
I mean, I can just show off this picture and just say that you get an unstable Arcano crystal from Withered Gem or everything else.
Too, honestly, yeah.
It's kind of the same thing I've talked about with Enhancement Shaman and like every class. Like there is. Like, if you look at just this huge sample size on the screen right now, chat, obviously I'm at like 875 to 880 right here. Look at the actual damage numbers. Like, people freak out about trinkets. And yeah, there's some min-maxing, but the top to bottom right here is like 7,000 damage difference. 7,000 actual damage difference.
It's not really that much. Like,
yeah, it's...
The biggest thing is, like, World Quest trinkets with haste are very, very good.
Right.
Like, that's just because of our scaling with stats. And then the Arcano Crystal obviously is because of the same reason. It's just a huge stat stick, right? So between that, like, realistically, like, without getting really lucky on those 2 things, you're going to be shooting probably for Chrono Shard and then the Swarming Plague trinket off Nathendra. So those are the two like trinkets that you're probably going to end up with,
Right.
unless you get super lucky. So if you get super lucky, then awesome. Use 2 stat sticks. Like those are the best ones technically, but without getting super lucky, if you're looking at raid trinkets and everything, then Arcano, then the Swarming Plague trinket from Nathendra and Chrono Shard out of Arcway are the 2 best trinkets.
Right. And these, of course, this will be all linked in the video description box below if people want to actually look at them and visualize them, because trinket diversity, like there are some cool designs, but trinkets for almost like every single spec in the game are all almost like this. There are some like jumps here and there, but the biggest jump is you're going to find out like if you have like a, you know, an 8, you're down here like the 850s, way down here off this graph, even the graph doesn't start until 865. You have like an 850 or lower, and then all of a sudden you jump to like an 880 mythic trinket, and you have to figure out, okay, well, how much of a damage jump is that? But once you're like in the rat pack, it's so close together. Yeah.
Even with that though, like if you're trying to compare an 850 World Crest trinket to something that's 880, like you shouldn't even need to look at a trinket list for that, right? Like that should just be clear cut. This 850 is going to be worse than my 880, unless it's like the Twisted Wind trinket, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the like it is that, but it also isn't that at sometimes. So
fair enough. All right, more future proofing for those that are watching this like a year from now, maybe. We're talking about tier 19. Obviously, tier 20 and tier 21 might be out in the future, but let's bring up your tier set, the Legacy of Aj Akir, which the 2-piece for Demonology is Doom has a 50% chance to generate an additional soul shard when it ticks and does damage. And then Dreadstalkers lasts 4 seconds longer. So I assume you're going to 4-piece this. And then what's the impact of this set going to have for Demonology?
I mean, the impact is just going to be more random damage, basically. So the 50% chance to generate an additional soul shard can actually cause you to be having a lot of overcapping on your shards and like wasting your shards. So depending on the RNG of it and like what the proc rate on it is, it's like it may not be that great because you're going to be losing a lot of damage potential, because Demo is all about managing your soul shards. Like you have to like really look at how you're spending your shards and when you're gaining them, kind of thing. So that's a big thing. And then Dreadstalkers lasting 4 seconds longer is pretty good, because Dreadstalkers are like your best damage per soul shard in terms of what you're casting. So giving it a basically 100% uptime is really, really good because of that fact. Not only that, but also like lengthens your time window for having a good like Thalkiel consumption. So
also, I was literally about to ask that. Does that actually raise the potential RNG cap on how many demons you could have spawned for a larger Thalkiel?
It probably gives you an extra 2 or 3 amps, I would say.
Yeah. So that's a significant thing to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we didn't. I was going to bring that up as like a point with this, is that there's still like a theoretical like cap on how many demons can actually contribute at any given time, RNG aside, to Thalkiel's consumption. And then, of course, I wanted to plug this gigantic document that you made. So walk me through this thing real quick.
Sure. So if we're walking through this document here, the first page is just calculating how much damage your Thalkiel's consumption will actually do depending on your own stats and how many demons you have out.
Sure.
So you just plug in whatever your player HP is. You plug in what percentage your demonic empowerment is at. So it's base at 50. Then if you have 3 traits in, it's going to be 56. And then it can go up or down depending. Or not up or down, but it can go up depending on if you have extra traits in there. Then you enter your rating in, and it'll automatically tell you how much damage your Thalkiel's consumption is going to do based on the number of pets you have actually decided to put into the calculator. So you can give yourself a good idea, or not even a good idea, like an exact idea of how much damage your Thalkiel's consumption is going to do with those many demons out. So.
Right. And of course, this will be linked. Don't worry, chat. It'll definitely be linked. You also have like you have imp cast times here. You have gear comparisons. You've got relics. You've got Thalkiel's consumption damage actually for 20% demon.
So in 7.1 there were some data mine notes where they nerfed but actually buffed Thelka's consumption.
Huh.
So they nerfed the I can't even remember what it was. They nerfed how much HP your pets were getting, I think it was, but buffed the damage or buffed the HP that was drawn out of your pets. I don't exactly remember what it was, but everyone was freaking out because they were like, "Oh, they nerfed it, but blah blah blah." But so I just went and did this to appease the public, basically, saying like it's actually not a nerf.
Okay.
This is actually a buff kind of thing. So that's just like an experimental thing. It's not something that you really need to pay much attention to.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right here, like on the front, on the alive column with just your Felguard, you're at 88,000 with the stats that are in the current list right now, just to compare. 88,000 damage on just your Felguard, but in 7.1, with a little bit more HP, went up from 1.9 to 2.1. It jumps all the way to 107,000. So
Yep.
that's with just one pet. So it looks like it definitely is a little bit of a buff for sure. At least if the math is correct and nothing changes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was just basically to appease everyone, saying, "Hey, this is actually a buff thing," like,
Right.
because people just see what's on the notes and don't actually think about what it's actually doing altogether. So, and then the last tab is just the same thing as the first tab, but in a less friendly format, I think. So there's just two different ways.
I brought it up, and it's massive, and it has like note section over here.
Yeah, no, you're better off just using the TKC damage actual one, because it's a lot friendlier and actually gives you a good idea of exactly how much damage your Thelka is going to do, instead of saying, well, this is the percentage of value it could do, kind of thing. So just two different ways of thinking of it. And the main ones that you really need to look at are like the first tab, and then if you really want to min-max, like super min-max, imp cast time is also okay. But it's not completely accurate because imps spawn at different rates randomly. So it could be this, it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, right? So,
jeez. Well,
it's an unfortunate circumstance.
This document is crazy. I mean, this is a great resource for Demonology. All Destruction Warlocks are going to get are apparently Pyro's legs on camera. So, I mean, like, hey, it's a trade-off, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm saying they're going to come back, man.
Yeah. So, and to wrap up, we're good on time, actually. This is pretty well so far. This is, again, for those watching, this is the first time this is the new setup for the show. So give me like a rotational overview and optimizations, like do's and don'ts, to like wrap up how Demonology actually works before we move on.
So the basics of it is cast pet, buff pet. The optimization of it all is where you can combo your summons. So if you can, if you're spec'd with Demonic Calling and you have a free Dreadstalker, you can combo your summon by summoning your imps and then Dreadstalkers before buffing them. So you save the GCD with like minimal damage loss, and actually lets you fit in more demons into your Thalkia's consumption because of it. So if you can combo your summons and then buff, that's the optimization, like the biggest optimization, I would say. The other thing is actually buffing your pets and not forgetting to kind of do that. So that's where like the weak orders and everything come into play, like knowing when your pets are buffed. Other than that, I would just say enjoy the spec for what it is. It's a single target, like burst spec, well, burst-ish spec, I guess I should say. It has really good sustained AoE, especially Mythic Plus with Implosion, and like you're not going to be off the map if it's a cleave situation either, just because of how Doom works. So that's what I would say are the do's for the spec is primarily where I would say. The don'ts, I would say don't get frustrated when you're playing the spec, because it takes a lot to actually do well with the spec. Unfortunately, just because it's brand new, like you need to be able to put time into it, right? So there's a lot of nuances with the spec, especially with not capping your resources, like knowing when to cast what and when not to cast something, when you're moving, what to cast, like pre-planning your movement kind of thing. So there's a lot of little things that you need to master and like really get into before you can really do much with the spec or do well with the spec.
Okay, fair enough. And then secondary stats priorities.
Secondary set priorities is pretty simple too. Haste out the wazoo, like never stop stacking haste. You can basically never get enough haste. And then crit, and then mastery, and then versatility. That's pure single target. But the optimization of it all is, in reality, there's no such thing as a single target fight. pretty
Right.
much.
Yep.
Like ever. So the optimization is to go haste and then crit and then versatility and then mastery. And that's just because mastery scales only your demons and doesn't scale everything you're doing. So it doesn't scale Doom, it doesn't scale like Thalkiel's consumption, so it doesn't scale those things, which is more cleave-oriented kind of thing. So versatility and crit actually scale them, with crit kind of edging out on versatility.
Well, for those that are just like digesting all of that, this is how the shows are going to be in the future. That's a lot to go through, but I think we touched on basically everything. Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of like leave Demonology Warlocks with? You kind of touched on like everything I could think of.
Yeah, I want to leave you guys with one thing.
Yeah, sure.
Just on how Hand of Doom works, because I probably get 50,000 questions a day on how this actually works.
No, okay.
So the way Hand of Doom works is it refreshes the Doom whenever you cast Hand of Gul'dan. Doom is still going to do damage no matter what, regardless of when you refresh it, every X seconds. So X is like where your dot length is, depending on your haste. So if you have 0 haste, it's going to deal damage every 20 seconds, no matter what. Period, point blank, no more discussion about it. It's still going to do damage no matter when you refresh it. It's
Right.
not a traditional dot because it deals damage after the full length. So.
Right, of course. Because I definitely was curious about that during beta. So good to clear that up. Because there's no reason, like, when it refreshes, it's just a dot that will always just kind of... There's a train track.
It'll always do damage.
Right.
It's basically old dots before Pandemic came into a thing in MOB. So it's just going to do damage. You don't have to pay attention to it.
Fair enough. Well, thank you all for that ridiculous amount of... Just because of how the show works out now, it is time for a little break-a-rooney. And then we'll jump into Affliction. Terryn, are you ready? I know you're keep up with chat. Are you ready to talk about this after the break? You ready?
Yeah. No.
Oh. we're sandwiching the Affliction Warlock between the two more prominent specs just because. But alrighty. Take a moment real quick to tell you guys about some things and plug a little bit more about the channel. Of course, again, I cannot go too long right now without saying that, of course, right now I am sponsored by Discord. And you can check out all the Discord links, of course, below the stream. And if you are on YouTube right now, check below in the video description box for the link to all the different Discord channels. You're going to be linked over here to my gigantic Google document. In the document, there are links to 16 Discord channels. If you're not already using them, there's links to even my Discord channel where you can use the general chat to ask a boss questions. Each week before a show, I always prompt the chat to give me questions and things to ask the show. If there are really interesting questions to weave into the show notes, I do so. Also, it gives you opportunity to ask and talk to me about anything and keep up to date with announcements and whatnot. It's also the general healing and tank chat, as well as all the different class Discord. So Council of the Black Harvest here for Warlocks is a huge resource where all this information is posted and pinned into different categories. So you can go check that out as well. And you can just check out everything else on the side. We've got the favorited list. There's not a ton of websites for everything anymore. So that's one thing that is a little bit hard to keep up with. Not every like class or like spec has a website, but there are some resources. But again, mostly go check out the different Discord servers. And again, too, if you want to help support everything that I do here, then you can head over to my Patreon page. And, of course, the subscribers in Twitch chat right now as well. We broke 500 subs the other day, so hence all the new emotes in chat. So thank you all for supporting that. You're supporting everything that I do here. You're supporting the fact that I can make these interviews. You're supporting the fact that I can continue streaming and making other videos and hopefully making more guides. And there are still community spotlights on the future, and then going to conventions and making the base take series. So all of that does go a long way. And, of course, a special shout-out to the assistant producers of the show right now, which are Airgwin, Troffles, Death Scythe Pally, and Ludovicus. Thank you all so much for your generous support every single month to make this all work and to keep this show afloat. But enough about that. Terryn, it begins.
That's all I gotta say right now. Okay.
Let's see.
We need a...
My WowDB just exploded. Let me pull this back up so I can actually bring up your talents real quick here. What's happening? So yeah, so Affliction. This is... It's a weird spec. Would you?
The redheaded stepchild of Legion right now.
What does it say on Pyro's chair? What?
I don't know. It's backward.
It's backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards.
Oh, what a nerd.
Whatever.
That's fair. All right.
Like a kick me sign or something.
Probably, yeah. So you want to walk me through your talents for Affliction, sir?
Yes. So Affliction, there's like 3 main cookie cutters, but we can go down row by row. So level 15, 99.99, like just about every time you do this, you're going to be picking Agony, because it does infinitely more damage. Haunt has some silly padding things that you can do with it that like don't matter in almost every situation. And then Drain Soul is like really good for leveling, and that's about it, because Writhe and Agony still does more damage if you ever have to if you have to recast Agony on one target. Writhe and Agony will do more damage, period. So it's like you pick Writhe and Agony every time. Level 30, most of the times you pick Contagion. At level 30, we got some things to say about that, because Not doesn't get the wonders. He doesn't get to deal with that. So the two major talents are Contagion and Absolute Corruption. Contagion is really good if you are not going to be multi-dotting a lot. Absolute Corruption is really good for when you're learning a boss, for example, and you need to focus more on mechanics and less on trying to redot everything. So it's like it's just one dot that you hit it and then you pretend it doesn't exist anymore, and it does stuff. Ignore the cat.
Chat will love the cat. They're gonna freak out.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, cat. I'll show cat later. I'll show cat later.
Okay.
So Absolute Corruption is it's generally a really good thing. There's some kind of cool stuff you can do in some of the later Mythic Pluses. Because stuff lives for so long, you can take advantage of that. With lots of dotting on everything. And then there's the redheaded stepchild of Affliction and Destro, known as Manatap. It is technically more damage when you're multi-dotting, like 2 or 3 targets.
That's fair.
But it's also technically cancer to play with.
Yeah. I'm glad it was nerfed so much, because on early beta it was like mandatory.
I mean, it was like you. I hate it. I even in beta, I took the attitude of like, as long as it's not like a slice and dice situation for rogues where like you take this talent and it's actually a DPS loss. Sushi's telling me it's not bad to play with. You're a piece of shit, Sushi.
What?
So my personal attitude was, as long as something else is a damage increase, I'm gonna go with that instead, because like I hate 20-second maintenance buffs. They're really terrible design. They died in Cataclysm and they should have stayed dead.
Well, you would not like playing Enhancement Shaman then.
No, I leveled an Enhancement Shaman and I hated it.
Oh no!
Rip. Everyone else.
But the main difference between right there for most people is like you're either going Contagion or Absolute Corruption, and it is literally just like single target. 100% time you choose Contagion. And then if you're doing cheesy things on dragons, for example, you want AC because your AC stays on the dragon that's floating off in the distance, which is pretty cool. That's really awesome. Like instant free damage.
They don't become immune to damage when they're flying in the air?
No, you still damage them. Like you can't target them. You can't target them, but they still take damage. It's really cool. And then there's, like I said, it's a really good talent for like, hey, I'm learning this fight. I eventually will want it. Contagion will be more damage. Like if you're learning, if you're doing something weird like Affliction on Cenarius, it's nice to not have to worry about one of your dots on 4 targets, because you've got to dot the Dryads, you got to dot your effigy. We'll get to that later, sure. And you got to dot Cenarius, and it's just one less thing you have to worry about. So that's nice. So that's level 30. Level 45. Pre 7.1, you take Demon Skin. Post 7.1, you get a talent back, or a skill that was baseline back as a talent. So that's cool. Moving on. Realistically, Hollow Terror is really strong for PvP. Actually, the other two are actually really strong for PvP, from what I understand. So that's something I've been wanting to do this expansion. Because,
PvPs?
Well, SL is back, and I played a Warlock back in the glory days of SLSL, and that was really fun.
Okay.
And 2 buttons. That was also fun. watch a movie and everything. So level 45, you just take whatever is in that far one position for either now or in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Level 60, there are two main choices. Soul Harvest is not a choice because the duration just sucks. In any situation where the duration is good, you want another talent, is the main issue. If they were to buff that to 20 to 25 seconds base, I could see there being uses for burst time. Il'gynoth, for example, having a almost 30 second buff would be really nice, but right now it's just not good. So you're either doing Sow the Seeds when you're doing anything where you want to AoE pad, and then you're doing Siphon Life whenever you're single target. Or you are doing things where you're just not going to blow them up quickly. So later Mythic Plus, you actually want to go Siphon Life, because you can't, like, anything once you're on 2 affixes, Siphon Life is generally better. 7 plus. And then, single target, you're always going Siphon. Sure. Level 75, if you're in a fight, we're going to assume this is 7.1. If you're in a fight where you are going to be taking big damage every minute, so like Ursoc, Dark Pact is really good.
Right.
If you're in a fight where you're taking lots of steady damage, Demon Skin's going to be really good. And then if you are on Cenarius, you really like Burning Rush because, again, you get to ignore the Dryad debuff entirely when you have that up, which is like saves you almost every time because people are really good at standing in bad things.
Mm-hmm. Like Nod is, yeah. Like Nod is.
Well, Nod just doesn't care. Nod's just like, okay, I'll just take this debuff 6 times in a row, no big deal.
It's true. I just pop a cooldown and
the other thing that Nod likes to do is you get someone else killed and it makes your damage look good. So
he takes away competition.
Oh.
Yeah, you kill the Shadow Priest before they can surrender to Madness, and then your damage goes up drastically.
This is true.
Warlock strategies. We've been killing people since forever.
It's true. All right, next up.
So level 90. This one is kind of, again, it's a two choice. It was 3, and then for whatever reason between Destro and Affliction, they decided that Affliction was doing too much damage with Sack. So they nerfed Sack damage, and it's now basically useless. The times where you would like it are, again, Mythic Plus, and having a stun is a lot better. So you generally go Supremacy and Mythic Plus, and a lot of the single target, even people are finding that Supremacy is better because it's a 1 button. You send your pet at a thing, your Doomguard at a thing, and you deal 10% bonus damage. That's kind of how Doomguard is he's about 10% of your damage when he's going.
Mm-hmm. And you said the stun for Mythic Plus. You mean the Infernal for the AoE stun?
Yeah. So you go in Mythic Plus, you go Infernal for all the trash, and then you just swap right before the boss, and you tell Doomguard to do his thing.
Sure.
And so it's actually really good for Mythic Plus for Affliction. And then in pure single target, there is some case Supremacy, or not Supremacy. Wow. Service is technically more damage. But again, it's another button you have to press. You have less drain life. You have less shards on UA, which does hurt you kind of. It's like, I don't know. It's technically more damage, but it's starting to become very minimal from what the parses we're seeing.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Simcraft has it higher, but World of Log parses, it's starting to kind of narrow out just because human error.
Sure.
Is really what it comes down to. So Supremacy, Mythic Plus, and then either Supremacy or Service if you're in an Ursoc fight for if whatever reason you're deciding to play AF on a fight like that. I don't know why, but so level 100, we get to play with probably the worst. The talent Soul Effigy is a band-aid for our. I mean, I can't. I got some salt for it. Soul Effigy.
You mean Prismatic Warlock Crystal?
It's not even that. That's it's not even prismatic crystal, because prismatic crystal, you just swap to the crystal while it's up, and then you go away from it when it goes away. Effigy is another target that lets you deal damage. And the issue with it is it's just there's a lot of targeting problems. On Ursoc, you outrange it, so you got to do this weird thing where you got to you got to find the perfect spot in the middle of the room, you drop that, and then after, in between his the roar that he does that deals damage to everyone, you got to run out, redot it, run back in, get hit by the second roar, redot it. It's absolutely terrible to play with, and there was its whole purpose is to give us another soul shard target because of the way that soul shards work right now. We'll get to that in just a minute. In fact, if we can do that before we go to artifact, that'd be good, because there's a couple of misconceptions with this stuff. So it gives you another soul shard target, and it provides extra damage, is kind of its whole point. And there are two, there was a mechanic that we used to have called Malefic Grasp that would have done exactly that, without this really terrible play style and without causing a ramp up time to be 40 seconds long. If you lust on pull for Affliction, your damage is just so bad, because by the time your all of your agonies are ramped up and everything, your lust is off. You don't have lust anymore. It's really annoying. And Effigy kind of contributes to this. Now, in terms of what is good and what's not good, Effigy is basically, if you're not leveling and you're not cheesing Mythic 2s, you're playing Soul Effigy. There's some Goonie stuff that you can do with Soul Effigy with reflecting AoE into the Effigy, so it's hitting a target 1.5%
that's still a thing.
times. Well, it's gone in 8 days or whatever it is. So that's unfortunate. Yeah, that's getting removed in 7.1. Which is very sad. Affliction is the only spec of the three that's getting any real major changes mechanically in 7.1, and it needs a lot more. If anyone is from Blizzard is watching, there's a lot of help that needs to be done. Not just numbers, just mechanically. Affliction is kind of painful at times. So, the AoE reflection that you can, like I said, your Soul Flames, we'll get to that in a little bit, Seeds, will also target Effigy and explode and deals damage to everything, and then all the other seed explosions would hit the Effigy, and so your main target of Effigy is getting 100 and 1.35% of damage of those AoEs instead of the standard 1x. So there's just a lot of really weird situational things. You just got to start making all these weird exceptions for it, and it doesn't make sense. But anyways, so back on target, Effigy is that's your talent for single target, and basically 95% of the things. Prismatic, what's it called? Not prismatic. Phantom Singularity.
The Phantom Zone.
Yeah. I call it Barrage 2.0.
No.
Because that's what it does. Barrage. It was actually really fun because it used to pull through walls for a little while. So you'd be pulling something, you wouldn't be out of combat, and then all of a sudden the entire dungeon would come by you, and I'm like, my job here is done.
Right.
So it's really nice for Phantom Singularity is really good for cheesing mythic, low-level mythics. When you're just you're pulling everything into the boss and AoEing it. And as Affliction, you actually gain a huge single target buff from that because of, again, the artifact. We'll get to that in a little bit.
It's also just a huge single target dot, technically. I mean,
it is. It's 3. I think Gato said it's 3 or 4 UAs over its duration. So I mean, it's not the worst thing ever for single. It's actually a really good spell. The problem is that our shard generation without Effigy is so bad on single target that you can't not have it. So that's kind of the TLDR in that.
So if your shard generation's so bad, why not Soul Conduit?
Because Soul Conduit doesn't kick in. I guess I can talk about Soul Shard Generation right now because that leads into why Soul Conduit, you just can't really take it.
Sure.
Shard Generation works on a square root curve. So you have a % chance for a shard, and then for every every agony tick has a % chance to get a shard. That agony has a modifier that is based on the number of targets that you have, but that ramp up that you get per target, it's not linear. It's 3 targets. It's only like a 25% return for adding another target to your agony. It's really weird. The other thing is that agony has a guaranteed shard time. Every time agony ticks, it has an internal counter.
Right.
And then after I think it's 30 or 40 ticks, something like that, it just generates a shard no matter what, and that counter gets reset. So agony has an artificial thing, which Destro frankly kind of needs, which says, no, after this many ticks, you will have a shard, period. And the shard generation for Affliction, when you have 3 targets, is incredibly smooth. It feels really good. But the reason why you never go Soul Conduit is you need 4 targets for Soul Conduit to be worth it over adding an extra agony tick in terms of shard generation. And agony does a lot of damage for Affliction. It's about 20% of your damage.
So having the extra target to dot in Soul Effigy gives you a better benefit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For 2 targets and 3 targets, Effigy is more shards. For 4 targets, Conduit will beat adding the extra target of Effigy, but Effigy will deal more damage than the extra UA and everything from Soul Conduit. It's kind of like this. It's like 5 or 6 is where it finally becomes better, and that doesn't exist.
Okay.
It just generally there's just in a situation where you're going to have 5 or 6 targets, there's going to be a better talent, because that's just it's mythic trash pulls, and then you still have to deal boss damage, so you still want to have effigy.
All right. How about Ulthalesh, the Deadwind Harvester?
Okay, before Ulthalesh, can I go over one more thing? Because there is one more huge mechanic, and it's called Unstable Affliction. And the problem is, the problem with UA is it works really weird right now. It's not very well worded. And then we got this new patch coming out called 7.1, which changes it how it works again. And again, it's not well worded. So I'm going to talk about how it's going to work in 7.1, because that's going to be more relevant. Unstable Affliction, the way it used to work, or what works currently, is it works very similar to Ignite. And that's going away. It is now, you cast UA, and then if you cast it again in 7.1, you get a second UA dot. So you will literally have 2 UA boxes chilling out on your screen.
Really?
Under the target. Yes. Now what's cool is there's a lot of talents there's a lot of things that happen if UA expires with your artifact, or if the target dies when there's a UA on it, you get the shard back. Right now, because it's 1 single dot, you only get 1 shard, and in the patch, Gato just confirmed this, you get all the shards back. So if you have 4 UAs ticking on the target for some reason, and then it dies, you have a full shard bank again. It's kind of actually hilarious. So in terms of weird mechanics, UA is the only, I think it is the only other than Doom, because Doom only ticks once, it is the only snapshotting dot in the game.
For a caster, obviously Feral Druids still snapshot.
Right. Yeah, right. They're another can of worms, but
and technically Bloodlet Momentum doesn't, but it does, or so, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of casters, UA is the only dot that snapshots now. Okay. It has, again, right now it's got the ignite it mechanic. So as it deals or as you add more damage onto it, it's 1 dot, so that damage gets snapshotted. The reason why they changed it is because there's my post in the MMLC thread has this list of mechanics that it has. The dot itself, every time you cast it, it re-snapshots haste and crits. Or I think crit doesn't snapshot. I don't know. That's kind of the issue with UA right now, and why they are changing it is because before it was just a mess, whereas now in 7.1, each dot is its own individual thing, so each one snapshots itself. So that's the big thing with UA. The major thing that a lot of people don't realize about UA is the fact that if the target dies, you get that shard back, which means cheesing things like Xavius, the little ads on Xavius, You get a lot of you can just spam UA during that stuff. You just keep your dots rolling on Xavius and your effigy, and then you just drop UAs everywhere. That's like the only place you can also do like haunt shenanigans, because haunt resets cooldown when the target dies. And I think they fixed it for a while. If it was haunt was the killing blow, it didn't reset, which was really annoying. I'm pretty sure they fixed that. I didn't touch it since then because it's not good talent anymore. But there are cases where you can do some really cheesy stuff like that. But for UA, that is like the biggest mechanic with UA is the shard regen mechanic on that. So, and then you can also do really fun things. Like I was doing one of the world quests, PvP world quests, and I had a priest dispel it, and that was awesome. That mechanic's still there. It's like infinite damage. So fair. So we can go ahead. Yeah, Ulthalesh. I think you have the current 7.0 artifact path, where right now you're going immediately up to Compounding Horror. This is a stacking buff that increases the damage of your next UA cast. This is unfortunately getting changed in 7.1. We'll go back to it. And then you're going around to Soul Flame. So Soul Flame, Old Flesh in general has a lot of mechanics that happen on a target's mob death. And the way it works now is it's when the target, if you tap the target at all, you get credit for it.
Right.
There was a period of time where you had to actually get the killing blow, and so the artifact was awful. But now, so if you tap the target, you get Soul Flame. So if that Soul Flame, you tap a target, it hits Soul Flame, and it hits everything else, they're now all tapped, and when they die, they Soul Flame. Soul Flame is really fun because you can do things like on... what's the one that the mythic that everyone farms?
Maw Souls?
Yeah, Maw Souls. So you grab everything on the first boss, you grab them, you pull them in, you go to the first boss, you AoE everything down, your seats hit everything, they all die, and then your Soul Flame hits for a couple 100 million or something, like silly. The other thing with Ulthalesh is you've got the Reap button. So you have souls that will periodically spawn, or if a target dies that you've tapped, you get a soul stack. Those stack up to 12. Every soul that you have gives you a plus 5 seconds onto a buff that gives you 10% damage and then amplifies everything on the artifact. And this is where balancing of Affliction becomes a nightmare. So all of these artifact traits have an amplifier in some way. The proc rate on Compounding Horror has increased proc rate when you have Reap Up. When you have Reap Up and your Soul Flame goes off, it deals double damage. So it deals a lot. It can deal a lot of damage. If you basically you want to have Reap Up when you're about to have a big pack of mobs go pop, because then your Soul Flame does just monstrous amount of damage.
Right.
So going on from Soul Flame, you drop down into Shadowy Incantations and into Wrath of Corruption. Consumption, Corruption, I don't know. There's a bunch of like really weird names that all sound the same. But that button, it does... Yeah, that one. Yeah, there we go. I'm just watching the stream. Anyways, so... You every time a target dies, you get a buff that gives you 1% bonus damage, 2% when Reap is up. So 2%. It's 2% and 4%. Sorry about that. So you get 10% bonus damage, 20% bonus when it's Reap, and that is what makes you really, really good whenever ads are involved. And again, this is where some of the balancing problems are coming in with Affliction, where you can't buff things too much because if there's ads involved, that just gets blown way out of proportion. Yeah. So the whole artifact as a whole has become a band-aid. Those two, the Soul Flame and Wrath of Corruption, are band-aids for how bad dots are on ad fights. They're incredibly good band-aids, and they are now causing some of the other single target problems. So after you get Wrath of Corruption, you want to go to the last gold dragon trait, Harvester, which gives your corruption, it essentially gives your corruption an extra 15% damage is what it is. You have a chance to deal a lot of damage on each corruption tick, and those ticks, that bonus damage will heal you for full amount.
Right, okay.
Corruption Corruption deals a lot more damage with that. That proc itself is about 3 to 4% of your damage, depending on how many, depending on the fight. Really, really, really strong. And then from there, it's just kind of filling out the rest of it. Pandemic is a really good trait and everything like that. So with 7-1, the main change with the artifact is compounding horror has been neutered. Because frankly, that is the strongest non-golden trait probably in the game right now. Outside of maybe the imp one for demo. And it instead now, every time you UA, you get your UA deals an instant amount of damage. The problem is that instant amount of damage right now is really low.
So it doesn't have the chance stacking anything anymore.
That's still the chance stacking still exists. It's just that the consumption, it doesn't buff the UA. It just makes it deal instant damage. But that instant damage, it was like, I think it was like 20k when I was testing it last time for a 5-stack, which is like nothing. UA will tick for over 100k on its own. So it's very minuscule. So because of that, and because of how strong we're starting to see harvesters being right now in 7-1, a lot of the big thing is you actually go into Wrath of Corruption first, so you kind of like sweep to the right and then down. Wrath of Corruption, then you grab Soul Flame, and then you go back and you fill out to Harvester. So you get your 3 gold traits really quickly because they're all really, really good.
Yeah,
and
okay,
then you just kind of fill out the rest.
Okay.
Oh, and then I forgot Fatal Echoes. So 7-1 again.
Chat wanted me to bring this. Yeah.
Yeah. So Fatal Echoes right now, when your UA expires, it has a chance to reapply itself. So right now, since there's only one UA debuff, if you're stacking the UA, you only get that one. So it artificially says you don't want to stack UA right now, because it's now each UA is its own debuff. Fatal Echoes can proc off of each one of those, so that's fun. It's only 6%, so it's not a terrible amount. It's probably going to be like napkin math. It's like a 1% damage increase, but it's still better than compounding horror right now. Okay. So it's kind of recommended to grab that, and you get your drain buff, which is okay. So that's just the artifact. Relics, there is an awesome thing. It's been linked in the chat. Thank you, Sushi, for that also. He's been a boss with getting all these lists together.
Oh, what is this? This is new. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. These are the Affliction. So right now, the kind of ranking, immediate agony and shadowy incantations. That's 1%. Shadowy incantations is 1% shadow damage, 2% with reap. Immediate agony or imitable agony is bonus agony damage ×2 with reap up. Those are kind of neck and neck. The main thing is shadowy incantations applies to literally everything except for Soul Flame, and immediate agony or imitable agony is only agony. So it's kind of like shadowy incantations and imitable agony are like neck and neck. If you get a relic that's like that's a higher eye level in the other one, you go with that. But those are like your best relics.
Okay.
And then after that, it's UA and then Corruption.
That's fair.
Yeah.
How about legendaries? Do you have like a top 3 like not had for Demonology?
Yeah. Class. Yeah, so the Hood of Eternal Disdain, there's a lot of confusion about how this works. Gato will confirm me this or call me a complete retard in the chat when I botch this. It is actually not anything that the tooltip describes, and it's instead the class trinket from WoD for Agony. It makes your Agony have less duration and tick faster. So it is literally, it accelerates the Agony dot, and that's it. So that's all it does. That's also the best one. The next one is going to be Power Chord of Lethedris, which is a 1/4, 25% chance of refund on UA. Soul Shard refund on UA. Sindori Spite is the next one that actually can drop. You can use that for AF. You just have to be spec demo our loot drop demo to get it.
What? Wait a minute. What is this? There should be no cross legendarying.
But it's a cooldown that we got, and it works, so it's a thing.
What?
It is not demo specific. We can use it, and it's really good. It also makes Felguard not a pile of turd. So Felguard is like 3 UAs. It's like 1 shard for 3 UAs. That's what it is for Aff.
But Doomguard, by the way.
Oh, Doomguard. Yeah.
Because
it's permanent pet status and whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then from that, it's Strengthened Sleepless Shackles. That's the one where every UA that you have out gives you more damage. The problem with that is UA duration is reduced by haste.
Mm-hmm.
So you generally don't have more than 2 UA out, and even then you can't like spam UA because of shards.
Until 7.1 apparently. Sort of.
Well, no, even then you don't have enough shards to like just chain UA everywhere. So
right.
So that's the big thing. It's hood, the power cord, and Sindori Spite. Sindori Spite and the power cord are probably neck and neck. Probably better for Sindori Spite, I would guess, but the hood is definitely better because it gives you more shards.
Okay. So. And we're gonna kind of glaze over trinkets because it's really similar to the other trinkets. This is actually Affliction trinkets again. We showed Demonology earlier. Hey, look at that top trinket there, and then World Quest Mastery, and then Chrono Shard. Hey, who'd have thought?
Mastery is your best stat for Affliction. You want like 20% haste, but Mastery is like super, super, super strong.
So those are your trinkets. More future proofing. Got to keep moving here. The Legacy of Aj Akir, again, your tier 19 set coming in the Nighthold. 2 pieces UA deals 50% additional damage over time. Okay. And then 4-piece Agony has a 1.5 times the normal chance to generate a soul shard. So without taking another half an hour to talk about soul shards, does that just accelerate the guaranteed window? Like, does the guaranteed window come sooner then, technically?
No, that counter is completely separate. No, this is
really?
there's a for every shard that you have, there's a modifier for what % chance you have to proc a shard.
Sure.
And that's the thing that's kind of like curved. So like 3 targets, whatever. This just times that by 1.5. You have 50% more shards, roughly. Sorry, not 50, but yeah, you have more that much % more shards.
Could that change talent layout then? Because because the same thing happens with Not, because he's going to have possibility of having too many soul shards with his tier bonus.
It will make UA possibly a 100% uptime. Possibly, depending on your haste. But again, it's not even that, because haste decreases the UA duration. So you'll have a much higher uptime on UA.
Okay.
That's the main thing.
So you kind of went over rotational stuff during all of that. So do you have any closing bits before we go into destruction about how like Affliction works? And mostly because you kind of already future-proofed again about 7.1 changes, which actually I wasn't aware of all those changes coming to 7.1. That's wild. So like anything to I mean, I put in here like, is it just dots and drain life? But like what are some...
Roughly? That's on single target. That's your rotation. The thing is Affliction pretty much sucks on single target. Like that's just the nature of things right now, and that's a balance thing. And Blizzard has to do some things to buff single target only, which is either UA or drain.
Okay.
So until that happens, you're not going to see a lot of like top end parsing on single target with Affliction. Now with multi-target, you've got a lot of opportunity for cheesing a lot of mechanics with Reap, cheesing a lot of mechanics with Soul Flame, maintaining your consumption buff. So there are more intricacies. There's a lot more global cooldown usage of trying to make sure you're tagging mobs, you're seeding properly, you're getting corruption everywhere for compounding horror for like a little while. And so there's a lot there's a lot more intricacies with multi-target, maintaining all your dots and stuff like that. But on single target, it is literally ... maintain UA as long as possible, as often as possible, and then drain. That's about it.
Okay. Is there and then your secondary stat priority? That's the last question.
Mastery, haste, everything else.
So Verse and Crit don't have like a meh?
Their crit is slightly better, but like if you can have like a set of gear with like 65% mastery and 35% haste, like that's the split of the numbers, you're in excellent shape. You want to stay on single target, you want like 20% haste for decent charge gen, and then on multi-target you want as literally all of the mastery, because it scales incredibly well.
All of the mastery. Fair enough. Do you have any like closing remarks for your champions of Affliction out there?
All five of us. I think there's
All
literally
two of
five
them?
of us.
Him and his ult.
Five of us.
Oh, five. Okay, five. Yeah.
There's like a couple of people on Warcraft logs that are doing it, but it's like just keep fighting the good fight. It'll maybe get fixed. I doubt it.
I mean, it's some of the things you mentioned in some. Wow, some of the things you mentioned about it, like it doesn't sound like they're tweaking a couple things that are a little bit busted. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of a better improvement in 7.1. All I know about Affliction from my point of view is that our Warlocks go Affliction for trash in the raids, and then they go back to Demonology.
Yeah. That's almost what I do right now.
And they do like 1 million plus DPS when you pull like 10 satyrs. It's just like yeah, but fair enough. All right, Pyro.
I'm ready.
Are your legs ready?
They've been ready. They haven't been ready. Yeah, we can. I probably have one of the simpler of the 3 specs, so it'll probably be relatively quick, I think.
So let's break down Destruction's talents then. Walking through these talents, I'm resetting my DB, my WoW DB here. So all right, talents. What are we at here with good, the bad, the ugly?
So on Destro, there's a couple arguments going on about talents. There's a lot of like extrinsic factors that are kind of going to play into which ones you take. There's also some talents in rating that you just don't take. So on the level 15 talent tree, one of the biggest, probably the single biggest argument that goes on for Destro right now is Backdraft versus Roaring Blaze. So I'm going to tread lightly here because I know some people are just going to get so triggered in the chat. But most people that I've seen for progression are taking Backdraft over Roaring Blaze. I think that there's a couple of reasons for that. I think it depends on if you have the proper relics to get the most out of Roaring Blaze. I think it depends on if you can pay enough attention to make Roaring Blaze worth using. I think it depends on what damage your raid needs, first of all. That's pretty important because there are 2 different types of damage that really you can output with it. And so a lot of people are like up in the air about what they want to take. So for Backdraft, it synergizes really well with things like Reverse Entropy that are also on the talent tree. So if you don't know, Casting Conflag reduces the cast time of Incinerate and Chaos Bolt by 30% for 5 seconds. Backdraft is something that we actually used to have built in to our class, and again, here we see it as a talent. And there's a couple other things on here that are the same. Roaring Blaze. So here's the thing. Theoretically speaking, mathematically speaking, Roaring Blaze should outdo Backdraft in almost every scenario, whether it's single target or it's 2 target. Mathematically, it should. But for some reason, for a lot of people, that ends up not being the case. Like I said, there's a lot of things that factor into that, like trinkets, whether or not you have enough haste. There's a lot of different stuff. Most people take the safer option and they go with Backdraft. It really is going to come down to a couple things. Mainly whether or not you suck at using Roaring Blaze. And there's really no way to get around that. Like some people are just not very good at dot management for some reason. And even though we only have 1 dot as Destro, it's really hard for them to double stack Roaring Blazes.
They obviously need to play Affliction then and learn that, right? They got to learn how to dot management.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play Affliction, Roaring Blaze really isn't that hard. Roaring Blaze really isn't that hard to use, but a lot of people choose to go Backdraft instead. I think a lot of people see better results out of it more consistently, so people choose to go with Backdraft. I personally play Backdraft because I hate Roaring Blaze. That's just my personal opinion. And then we have Shadowburn that's also on that tier, which you don't really take on any fight ever because the other 2 just outdo it in overall damage.
So before you move on, there was all this hubbub when I was doing all my beta testing that Shadowburn is going to just be the better choice, and you're just going to like spam it just like all the time. You're not going to use Soul Shards on Chaos Bolt. It's like just Shadowburn, all your Chaos Bolts down for better burst damage and more consistent damage. That is not a thing?
No. No. So since we got all of our buffs and everything, honestly, the damage that you're going to get out of Backdraft or Roaring Blaze, even after they nerfed Roaring Blaze, because it used to be much, much stronger than it is now, even after that, Shadowburn is not really used. You can pool. One of the main advantages of Shadowburn is that you can cast it at any health now, and you can cast it while you're moving. So those are pretty much the only two things that you really get out of it. A lot of fights, it really just isn't going to do that much damage overall.
Okay.
And especially now that we're getting more crit and more haste, Chaos Bolt's just going to outdo it in pretty much any situation.
Okay, good. Because I want to make sure that's a dead thing. All right, so.
Yeah,
next.
you could take Shadowburn in dungeons if you wanted to, because I think it's really good at dungeons. On the next talent tree, or the next talent list there, so we have Reverse Entropy, Cataclysm, and Mana Tap. I'll get it out of the way. Mana Tap, as everyone pretty much conclusively tends to agree, is pretty cancer to play with. No one really wants to use it at all. One of the biggest things for me with Mana Tap is, what it is it's a damage increase at the cost of mana. And we already have a mana cost, or a health cost for mana, that being in Life Tap. So the fact that if you want to run Mana Tap, you're really going to have to Life Tap more is really annoying to use, because you're just bouncing back and forth. And honestly, 10% increased damage for 20 seconds isn't really worth it in any situation. Pretty much nobody takes Mana Tap.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, it's going to be in conjunction with Roaring Blaze. There's not really a reason to take Mana Tap with Backdraft ever, or Shadowburn really ever anyway. Cataclysm, still, you really wouldn't take it a raid, because it's pretty much just padding. The only fight that I could see someone taking it on is Il'gynoth, and really not very many people are doing that anyways, because a lot of people do just consider that to be straight padding.
Right.
So the most common choice tends to be Reverse Entropy. Reverse Entropy is extremely easy to use, and it makes it so you virtually never have to Life Tap, which is really good, because the more damage you take, the more GCDs that you're spending getting your mana back that you can reduce, the better. So Reverse Entropy tends to be the overall choice for raiding.
Okay.
Any questions about those?
No, I mean,
All right.
I was actually to almost skip over the 45s and 75s here, because we know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, Warlocks know, and they're getting swapped around, and Demon Skin's going down with Demonic Circle and all this other stuff. So,
take Demon Skin.
Basically,
take Demon Skin. If you want mobility, take Burning Rush. If you want another defensive, which is what most people take, then take Dark Pact.
Until 7-1, where you only get to choose.
Until 7-1, then you have to take your Demonic Circle, and then you're gonna have to choose between Demon Skin and Dark Pact, which we had that discussion earlier.
That's a fight by fight thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As far as your 60 talents go, Eradication is generally going to be the go-to. The fact that Eradication just increases all damage done to the target by 12% is really nice. It kind of encourages the play style of chaining Chaos Bolts, which there's something else that also encourages that. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So even myself, on pretty much any fight that you play Destro, you're going to take Eradication. Again,
Sure.
Fire and Brimstone is sort of like Cataclysm in that it's nice because you're going to have to fill with Incinerate no matter what, but it's kind of one of those patty talents, again, where if you're doing priority damage, which that's kind of why you play Destruction. If you're doing priority damage, Eradication is going to do better.
Yeah.
And then there's Soul Harvest, which pretty much like the other two specs, you don't ever really take that. It only lasts 10 seconds, increased by 2 seconds for each target that you have Immolate on, and in raiding it doesn't really have a place.
It seems that Soul Harvest needs to have a better base, and then maybe an easier window to reach to gain. Like, it almost looks like it should be a 15 second space, and then you get 3 seconds for each target up to like 5 to give you the 30-second window. Because right now, asking you to have freaking, 10 targets cross-dotted with all the specs, like, is really punishing on a 2-minute cooldown. They need to squish the ceiling and raise the floor.
I agree.
Feels like, because all three of you were just like, yeah, this talent is balls. It's just not good.
It's better what was there before, let's be fair.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
the thing about it is Soul Harvest is their knockoff, like, shitty version of
Dark Intent.
like like instability and misery, and knowledge back from Mists of Pandaria, and the thing about it is I think they kind of wanted it to maybe be good, but they didn't want it to be exactly how it was before with Dark Soul, which I kind of get, but it was nice to have just a baseline, affects all your spells, damage increased instead of our main DPS CD being a demon. So, and we use a different demon half the time anyway. So when we get down to 90, in my opinion, there's really only two choices. You really wouldn't want to take Supremacy in any situation in raiding, because in the situations where people argue that Supremacy would even be viable, you probably should be playing Demonology anyway. The thing about it is Service is really nice when it's going to be like your single target go-to with Service, or if there's especially single target where you incorporate movement. Fights like Elreath, if you're not really hitting the ads, a lot of guilds have you just don't need to hit them because there's classes that can take care of them easily on the side.
Like Demon Hunters.
Yeah, like Demon Hunters. And Service is also, I found, really good on like Mythic Ursoc, because you're moving. Sacrifice can be used, but from what I've seen, and how I've played in the other Warlock in my guild, tends to be about 2 to 3 million more damage overall coming from Service than out of Sacrifice. So it's especially good on fights where you have to move, because you just summon it and you go. It's instant cast. Grimoire of Sacrifice is really good for things like dungeons. Anytime that there's going to be 2 targets or more stacked on top of each other, or anytime that you're using Roaring Blaze, the ticks from Roaring Blaze combined with Sacrifice, even if the targets are split apart, is going to be a lot of extra damage going out, whereas Service is really, it's only going to hit one target,
Right.
Which is whatever you cast it on. So that's Grimoire of Sacrifice is often used in conjunction with Roaring Blaze on fights like Dragons of Nightmare. And if you're not taking Roaring Blaze, that's just Backdraft, Reverse Entropy again. Sacrifice can do a hell of a lot of damage in AoE, especially if you use Rain of Fire, which, I mean, in AoE you probably should be. Each tick from Rain of Fire is going to grant a chance to have Sacrifice proc. So it's not uncommon to get into AoE packs and see your Rain of Fire or your Sacrifice at the top of your damage, just as passive damage.
And I mean, they just did buff Rain of Fire to make it instant cast at 3 soul shards. You just drop it, like it just plopped down, and you can stack Rain of Fire. People always wonder, do Rain of Fire stack? Yes, they definitely do. So,
and Rain of Fire is more valuable now in that it doesn't have a cast time. I still don't know that it should cost 3 soul shards like it does, but it's instant cast now, which is god tier. It makes it so much easier, because especially if you're like doing dungeons or something and you're running Cataclysm, for example, or if you just multi-immolate, then if you're getting really good RNG and getting a lot of shards back, especially if you use it in conjunction with Soul Conduit, which we'll talk about here in a minute, you can drop like 3-4 Rain of Fires in a row if you get lucky, which does a lot of damage. So that can Sacrifice again is pretty good. I've never really seen anyone take Supremacy, and I don't personally have any plans to do so.
fair enough.
On the last tree here, I have some pretty strong opinions about some of these talents. Before I talk about exactly what you would use them all for, I think Blizzard had an idea of what they wanted these talents to be like, and I don't think they really came out how they wanted them to. Wreak Havoc, first of all, I think is fine. I don't think Channel Demon Fire, I personally think that if on this last tier, Soul Conduit, in my opinion, probably should be the best single target by a fair margin. Some people technically sim higher with Channel Demon Fire. The thing about Channel Demon Fire is it requires you to be in a situation where you don't really have to move very much, because it does have a channel cast time, 3-second baseline reduced by haste. And the thing about it is it's a spell kind of like Mana Tap, where it's kind of cancerous to use. It's only got a 15-second cooldown, and you kind of use it to fill instead of incinerating where you normally would. It's not bad, because if you have Feretory of Souls, one of the legendaries that we'll talk about, it's actually pretty decent. But Soul Conduit, I find, tends to edge ahead of it, especially if there's any movement involved at all.
Yeah.
And that's on single target. And then
I was gonna say the back in my testing when I was looking at specs, because Channel Doomfire has like the AoE effect built in. So like I was like, okay, so you can take like Cataclysm and then you can channel Doomfire. But
Yeah.
it actually came out to what I figured is that channel Doomfire is a single target spell because its AoE damage is just garbage.
Yeah. So what I think, so it reads over 3 seconds at random targets afflicted by your immolate. Quite frankly, I think it should be all targets affected by immolate. I think it should be the go-to AoE talent.
Yeah.
Now, people are immediately going to say, holy shit, that would be overpowered. Yeah, that's why you would tune it to have less damage in AoE, but still be the best talent for AoE. Because as of right now, it's kind of a toss-up between Soul Conduit or Wreak Havoc, depending on what type of damage, again, that you're trying to do. Wreak Havoc is easily, hands down, in cleave situations, the best talent. Havoc is a very instrumental and important part of Destruction Warlock. It's their unique spell that really sets them apart from anything. So Havoc now lasts 20 seconds and has no cooldown. That allows for immediate target swapping with no cooldown on Havoc to wait for. You're immediately able to begin cleaving onto a second target. And the specialty really of Destruction Warlock is that you can cleave onto a second target without really losing any single target damage onto the primary target, because almost all of our abilities are single target abilities that replicate onto the Havoc target.
Yep.
That's why a lot of people play Destruction on Ursoc, even though Demonology is fine. It does a lot of damage to Ursoc. It allows Destrolocks to also cleave onto the ad without losing any damage onto Ursoc. And that's why it's also incredibly good on Dragons of Nightmare, because you're always going to have 2 targets to hit, whether it's the ads that come out, which are a priority, or whether you're cleaving between the 2 bosses or the 2 others that rotate in.
And not to open an old wound, but because you talked about this, and I remember this from beta, Roaring Blaze, if you're attacking one target and you wreak havoc or havoc with a target, doesn't the Conflag Roaring Blaze immolate damage go to the other target as well?
Yes. So if you havoc a target, you would want to, like on the opener of Dragons, for example, pre-pot, cast your Incinerate, immediately hit one of the dragons with Havoc, and then double immolate both of them, so you get the highest immolate duration through Pandemic on both.
Yep.
And then you would double Conflag to get the strongest Roaring Blaze rolling that you possibly could. As soon as Conflag comes off cooldown, when you have about 13 seconds left on your immolate, you'd hit it again to 3-stack it, and then you'd wait for the next rotation of Conflag CD to come through to reapply, and you just keep it going. So it's really important and instrumental in fights where you're going to be cleaving with Roaring Blaze. And Backdraft and Reverse Entropy, I mean, for a lot of people, seems to be able to pull out very competitive numbers in the same aspect, just because you're always hitting 2 targets. And you'll see it when you watch VODs of kills from Dragons of Nightmare. The Warlocks are always either on top or like second to S-Priest, feels bad, man. And then like mages are usually up there too. So it's Wreak Havoc is really powerful.
Yeah, I was gonna. The one last thing I wanted to bring up too was that it kind of feels, which is weird, that Roaring Blaze, in its fundamental in that regard, is very similar to Shadowflame, in like how it worked with the 3-stacking mechanic. That it does actually like triple stack in that regard. And again, Shadowflame for Demonology, triple stacking is the best, but it's a builder, whereas Destruction, because of Conflag, is also a builder. They're very similar.
Let me say this, because this is really important. When we get into next tier and we get our tier sets, it's probably not going to be a question of Backdraft versus Roaring Blaze, because and we'll touch on that, obviously. Your 2-piece is going to give you a 3rd stack of Conflag and reduce the CD by 2 seconds baseline. So that's probably one of the strongest 2-pieces that exists for next tier, and that's going to make Roaring Blaze pull ahead, I would say, relatively substantially anytime that you're going to be playing Destruction.
Okay.
The last thing was Soul Conduit again. You can use it in AoE if it's just going to be pure AoE. It's nice to get refunds on your fire, Rain of Fire, and things like that. And then when you're moving a lot, it's pretty good. So, is it 4-piece? Did they switch 2-piece and 4-piece? Well, then there you go. I kind of figured that they would, because the 2-piece was really strong. So if they did switch them, then there you go. So, still important.
I still have the notes that I have in the show are incorrect then, because well, we brought it up now, so we'll just flip-flop real quick to go over tier 19, because we talked about the talents and these kind of affected. So now technically your 2-piece on Legacy of Aj Akir would be your casting Chaos Bolt reduces the cast of your next Chaos Bolt by 20% for 2 seconds, basically the next Chaos Bolt. So, and then your 4-piece now would be the Conflag is 3 charges and a 3-second reduced recharge cooldown.
3 second. Okay, yeah, and I personally think that's probably how it should be. I would have been happy to have a really strong 2-piece, but I think it probably makes more sense to have it the other way around. The 2-piece, that's what I was talking about, that kind of wants to push you towards using Eradication, because it's encouraging chaining Chaos Bolts,
Right.
which Eradication, when you Chaos Bolt, that's what puts the debuff on the target. So it really kind of enforces that playstyle, and I think combined with Wreak Havoc, again, is gonna make it even stronger. So, yep.
Fair enough. So now I'm going to go backwards and go to the Scepter of Sargeras. You want to walk me through the Golden Dragons and the artifact path real quick here for your...
Yeah. Let me get this pulled up here. So yeah, the first thing, obviously, you're going to have to take your Dimensional Ripper. Dimensional Rift, sorry. Dimensional Rift is really important because it's one of the only abilities that we can cast while we're moving. So a lot of people ask how really to properly use it, because it does have 3 charges on a 45-second recharge, and there's not really like a set way that you have to use it. I would certainly use one in the opener at least to get the recharge rolling, so you're not wasting the duration of a cooldown.
Right.
And then I personally, on a lot of fights, use it when I have to move and I don't have a conflag. I feel like the damage made up using some type of ability while you're moving is going to be more beneficial than dumping all 3 of them in a certain period of time throughout a fight. For progression, like when you're on farm, it might be better to do it that way. But I think on progression, especially as Destro being as movement hindered as it is, that's going to be the best time to use them, is just when you have to move, when you're forced to move, for like Roaring Cacophony or Miasma on like Ursoc, for example. After that, there's a couple traits that we immediately want to go for. So you have to take Flames of the Pit, of course, and then you would actually go down to Eternal Struggle. So Eternal Struggle, after casting Life Tap, you take 9% less damage for 6 seconds on the 3rd rank. Who gives a shit? Like, it doesn't matter because we have such a passive shield anyway. 9% less damage is completely... It doesn't mean anything really on most fights. And then you go down to Impish Incineration. So Impish Incineration normally increases the damage of your Imp's Firebolt by 18%. And Supremacy, it increases your Doomguard's Doomball by 18%. But one of the biggest things for it is what it does for Grimoire of Sacrifice. It increases demonic power damage by 50%. So if you're ever going to use Grimoire of Sacrifice, you should probably have this trait before you do it, because it's going to be doing a hell of a lot more damage when you have it.
Now, does that mean that it is a 50% amp, like it's of the damage it does, or does it make the spell power coefficient stronger for Sacrifice? That's a very mathy question, but I always wonder about... Yeah. I always wonder about when they say, like, you know, it says it increases the damage of something by 50%. So it would take the roll from the Sacrifice proc and then give it a 0.5. Like,
so that like mathematical questions like that, quite frankly, are probably going to be better aimed at Gatto to answer. As far as the mathematical side of how it exactly...
Gatto says same thing.
Yeah.
Times by 1.5 equals damage.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure.
There you go. After that, you're actually going to go straight up to Burning Hunger, which is the Immolate talent right above Eternal Struggle, and get all 3 of those. That's going to increase Immolate's critical strike chance by a maximum of 24%, which is really substantial, especially when you start using Roaring Blaze. But one of the biggest reasons is to get to Lord of Flames right above it. So Lord of Flames, contrary to popular belief, is not necessarily a popular belief, but some people believe that it's not that good. When you compare summoning an Infernal with the Lord of Flames to a Doomguard, Lord of Flames does more damage, even on a single target. So once every 10 minutes, Summon Infernal will summon 3 additional, they're like little baby Infernals, to serve you for 25 seconds. And the damage that is outputted by those small Infernals in conjunction with the primary Infernal does more damage than a Doomguard. And then especially when you factor in multiple targets, it's not even a question. It is certainly more damage. The thing about it is it does have a 10-minute cooldown on it, so you need to be kind of careful about where you want to use this. One of the biggest changes for Warlocks is that our main CD, being the Doomguard or Infernal that we summon, is only on a 3-minute cooldown now. So you can only utilize Lord of Flames pretty much one time in a fight, unless it's a really long fight. So if you're going to be lusting...
Does it reset like on boss resets? Because there's no way to track the debuff. Is there just like the buff on you?
Yes, and it resets on death as well. So if you die, it gets rid of the debuff as well. Okay. Ideally, you don't die, but if you're going to be lusting and burning like on a single target fight, you might as well just use the Infernal whenever you're going to be lusting, and then use Doomguard every other time. If there's, for some reason, a cluster of ads that you're gonna benefit on maybe Il'gynoth or something like that.
Right.
I still would probably save Infernal for the burn phase inside, but I've seen some people use their Infernal probably just to pad, honestly. But then after that, we go up from just north of Flames of the Pit to Devourer of Life. Drain Life has a 45% chance to increase its damage and healing by 25% for 15 seconds. Again,
You don't have to go through all of these, by the way, Pyro.
Yeah, okay. Well, so you go through Devourer of Life. Negligible, doesn't really matter. Cool, you get some more healing. You go to Residual Flames, which increases Immolate damage by 18% at the top. So that's, again, really important if you're going to be using Roaring Blaze. And then you would take Conflagration of Chaos, which is your second golden trait. And it guarantees your next Conflag critically strikes and increase its damage by your crit strike chance. So you can have Conflags hit for like 350k. At my gear, at least. I'm 870, so. After that, as far as whether you go... The very last trait that you're going to want to take is Planeswalker, which is the one that's over on the left by itself.
Yeah.
That's the very last one. We'll keep that out of the way. But that
serves really well with your legendary right now.
Listen to me right now. That legendary, man. We're not talking about it.
Okay.
When you go down, you have a legendary.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
That's true. When you go down through Master of Disaster or Rain or Fire from the Sky, for single target, obviously, Master of Disaster is going to be better because it increases incinerate damage. I personally went with Fire from the Sky because overall, anytime that there's going to be adds or anything, three or more targets stacked on top of each other, especially since Rain of Fire is now instant cast, I went with Fire from the Sky before I went with the others. Then, of course, you have to take Demonic Durability to get down to the next ones. From there, you would take Soul Snatcher, which is the Chaos Bolt thing right there, which has a chance at 15% for all 3 ranks to refund a soul shard. That's pretty good. 15% is not excellent, but it's not terrible. And then you take Chaotic Instability, which increases crit strike damage of Chaos Bolt by 8%, which just scales your Chaos Bolt. And then you would take Dimensional Ripper. Incinerate has a 5% chance to grant a charge of Dimensional Rift, which is actually terrible in my opinion, but 5% is so low.
Looks pretty bad.
It's so low, dude. It's like it's easily the worst of the 3 golden traits.
And
then you take
What I remember about this is that it's the cast of Incinerate that actually has the chance, nothing to do with like Fire and Brimstone or multiple targets or like when it lands. It's actually just the finishing of the cast has a chance, correct?
With Dimensional Ripper?
Yes, Dimensional Ripper.
Should be on like the finish of the cast, yes.
Right,
like on actual cast of the spell.
Right.
And then that's pretty much it for the weapon as far as the way you get it. So immediately go down to Impish Incineration, go up and get Lord of Flames, go up and get Conflag of Chaos. However you want to go through the middle, honestly, it's your choice. And please, God, don't take Planeswalker until the very last trait because it's just not very good.
That's fair.
So,
okay, Legendary tier list then, sir.
Yes. So the Legendaries are relatively straightforward with Destro. The number one, we talked about this earlier where we have like cross-spec legendaries, and Nott and I kind of spoke about it briefly before we started about how it really shouldn't be this way because Sindori's Spite is the best of all of the legendaries for destruction as well. That's the one that gives you increased. Yeah, that's the one that gives you increased damage after you summon your big demon on the 3-minute ICD. And the thing about it is you have to be spec'd into Demonology loot spec to even receive it as a drop, which is kind of sketchy because if you're someone that really likes destruction and wants to main destruction, it gives you the chance of getting a Demonology legendary that you don't want. Exactly. And for progression raiders, you probably should be playing both of the specs most of the time anyway.
I guess I feel I'm curious to why this is even a thing, and if this ever gets into anyone at Blizzard's ears, I'm pretty sure they should just make legendaries lock to a spec, which they may not want to do because you want to have the stat sticks for other specs. But that's a little bit egregious because now, but are any of the elemental ones really good for enhancement?
Yeah,
because that really shouldn't be a thing. You guys
honestly,
are all giggling at chat and stuff, but
yeah, they're dying over that. I don't know what's going on. I'm not reading chat; it's too distracting. No. But it is certainly probably the best legendary overall. And the fact that it works for both is going to be good. Second to that is I would say Feretory of Souls. That's the belt that gives you a % chance to refund or % chance to generate a soul shard upon casting a fire spell. Pretty much everything that we cast, with the exception of Shadowburn and Chaos Bolt, is a fire spell. So it's pretty good. You'll see a lot of Warlocks using that. Next to that is Magic Strike Restraints, which is the actual Destro Bracers. That gives your Chaos Bolt the chance to multi-strike essentially onto another target.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, Odir Shawl of the Yurmar, which gives when the target that you have Havoced takes 8% increased damage. So if you can, get Sundari's Spite. If not, pray that you get Feretory of Souls or Magic Strike Restraints. Other than the ones that I mentioned, the others aren't exactly great, like my Legendary Legs.
Okay. And for the sake of time, I'm going to bring up another gigantic sim by Gatto about trinkets, which doesn't look really any different, almost. Here you go, chat. It's so different for destruction. Oh my. I mean, instead of being unstable, the spiked tongue sneaks in there.
Yep.
And then it's right below it again. However, you do have, like, Oakheart's Gnarled Root shows up here, which doesn't show up for the other ones. And then Spiked Tongue, Shock Baton are a little higher. So a little bit of variation. But again, the big thing to take away from this as well, even scrolling all the way down to, like, the bottom ranked 865, all the way to the top, like, trinket diversity, like in eye level scaling, like the damage gains are so tiny.
Yep.
But
yeah,
your world quest trinkets for destruction aren't as high as the other two specs. So, but
no, and that's going to be pretty common, I think, with casters overall. The Arcana Crystal is just going to be powerful no matter what. One thing you have to keep in mind when you're looking at like Spike Tongue and stuff is those are pretty high Titan Forge versions, like 880, 875. As you get into higher Mythic Pluses, you're going to have a higher chance to get those, obviously, because of the floor for item level. But if you can get, pretty much it goes, if you can get any Arcana Crystal, get it. If you can get a really nice Titan Forge Spike Tongue, Oak Hearts, or Shock Baton, then go for it. Other than that, the trinkets, like you said, the damage is so negligible between them. It's really going to come down to going and simming your own character to figure out the difference between two trinkets.
And a big weird point of this too is that, like, Nightmare. I mean, we have Trial of Valor coming out 2 weeks at, the week after BlizzCon, the Tuesday after BlizzCon, the 8th of November, and that has new trinkets coming in that, as well as Karazhan has new trinkets as well. So obviously this can definitely change. Something we really can't look forward to future-proof the show in that regard is trinkets. So Warlock Discord for that. But Nightmare trinkets, like, almost are like all just like
bad.
Yeah, they're all pretty terrible.
So bad.
Like,
they're
I have
really
one.
bad.
Swarming Plague is good.
Yeah, Plague Hive's good.
Yeah, Swarming Plague is the one exception.
Right.
Pretty much every other trinket in the instance is trash.
I have the same. It's weird that Swarming Plague Hive is good for you. It's also good for me, but then I also get the Instinct. But the other Ursoc trinket for Strength Melee is like, did they mess that up and it should stack more? Like, there are. Ian talked about it last week on the Q&A. So they need to. They're not.
Yeah.
Not right.
And kind of leading into that, stat priority is a big thing. So our weights were recently updated thanks to, I believe it was Gatto who did that. They're still in the same order that they were before. Stat weights are just a little different. So the stat priority, of course, is intellect is actually like equal to haste. Haste is incredibly valuable for Warlock up until a certain point, and then it's crit and then versatility over mastery. So the mastery is actually terrible for Warlock because it has a chance to give you a random amount of bonus damage up to a certain point scaling with haste, and a random chance to have you take less damage. So mastery is absolutely terrible. Like, while you might have every once in a while those chaos bolts that hit really high, kind of like you mentioned earlier, they need to kind of like raise the floor on it. And make it more consistent because it's so RNG at this point. It's just not good.
There should be some RNG. It's kind of a fun moment when you throw in a Chaos Bolt that's like a lot larger than another one. But obviously, consistency for Raiders, like I've talked about this before in the past shows. You don't want. There's not as much RNG in Legion. Thankfully, there's no multi-strike. There's not a lot of that. That nonsense is gone.
Not RNG to the Destro guy.
Yeah,
right.
it's like I don't know. Having consistent damage through haste and crit, especially because crit is just a straight damage, essentially scaling for Chaos Bolt, is just gonna be a lot more valuable. And verse is exactly what it is, just a damage increase. Real quick, because I know you want to kind of get this closed here. As far as relics for the weapon go, if you can get Immolate crit damage or Immolate damage and you play Roaring Blaze, go for that. If you can't, Soul Snatcher is not a bad option. That's the one that gives you a % chance to have a Soul Shard refunded upon casting Chaos Bolt. For Destro, if you can get Immolate damage relics, and you play Roaring Blaze, they're likely going to be better than a couple item levels here and there. If they're not Immolate damage, literally go with whatever is going to be the highest item level, or I would lean towards Soul Snatcher over shit like life tap damage reduction, obviously.
Of course.
Whatever.
Unless you're a PvP or min-maxing.
Exactly. I mean, aside from that, do's and don'ts of the spec, I mean,
yeah.
One thing you're going to want to do is just minimize your movement as much as possible. Make sure that you're using Havoc appropriately and figuring out whether or not Wreak Havoc is going to be the best option on a particular fight. It's usually pretty straightforward if it is. Consistent Cleave is going to be the way to go. Chain Chaos Bolts when you can for the eradication buff. And some of the other things. Utilize Weak Auras. One nice thing about Destruction, I guess, in a way, is that our Chaos Bolt damage isn't trinket proc dependent as it has kind of been in the past before, like Siege, for example, where we were having 4 million, 5 million Chaos Bolts. The trinkets that we have now just do damage, so you still need to use Weak Auras, especially for things like Backdraft, and just be aware of what's going on with your character.
Right.
But aside from that, I think that's pretty much it.
Bring in the cat tax now at the end of the show.
One last thing is that the spec is kind of RNG because the only guaranteed source of income for shards is through Conflag. Like, Immolate is questionable. Sometimes you'll get screwed by Immolate. Sometimes you'll get lucky procs. And I think that needs to certainly be looked at, because unless you have Feretory of Souls, then you don't really have a consistent, or even relatively consistent, with the exception of Conflag, source of soul shards. And that's really why I wish we could go back to Embers, because it was so damn consistent. It wasn't having to worry about whether or not your Immolate was going to give you procs, because you could generate your primary resource just through using your filler. So
fair enough. Well, not brought in the cat. Do you want to bring your cat in real quick, Terryn?
I mean, I have a cat.
My cat's a bitch, so I'm gonna let her sleep.
Okay.
My cat's nice. He won't hurt me.
That's
my
fair
cat
enough.
will literally kill me in my sleep, so I'm gonna let her sleep instead.
Well, that is basically everything. A little over the time, but again, we went through a ton of stuff. Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of things linked in there. Of course, I'll have a lot of stuff linked in the YouTube description box below if you're watching this on YouTube. That's a thing. And I think, is there anything else you want to make sure to note on, Terryn?
Make Warlocks great again.
Oh,
Warlocks are great again.
Just a shout out to the boys at the Warlock Discord, keeping the memes fresh.
The boys.
All the boys.
All the boys. We out here.
Oh, goodness. But anything else to touch on before we close this out? We good?
Oh, cat's awake. Hold on. We're
Oh,
good.
gosh.
Oh, no.
Fire Mage reroll imminent. Peace, boys. I'm out.
There we go. Okay. There's
Oh, no.
cat.
There's another
There's
cat.
cat. There's kitty. All right, we're gonna put you down before you kill me.
Well, Pyro has to come off at the end of the show sign out. I don't, what, there he is. Okay, he has to be back for the end of the show. Okay.
I'm good. We're good.
Well, it's button time then, gentlemen. It is button time. There it is. So that's how the show is going to work. Of course, I'll take some feedback and I'll wiggle things around, but I want to make sure that we're covering a ton of information on these shows and not just kind of, again, just talking about the specs, but really getting into the nitty gritty and hopefully future-proofing a little bit more for 7.1 and beyond. So thank you very much for being here for episode 119. Of course, the shows will go up on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. And also the show goes on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play. Google Play Music, Google Play Radio, Google Play Music, I believe. Again, thank you. Shout out to Discord for sponsoring the show. Check the links below, of course, if you want to join the different Discord servers. It'll link you to my channel guide. Check down there. And as well, make sure you join the FinalBossTV Discord if you want to ask me questions for upcoming shows when I prompt you to do so. But around the table again real quick, we'll start from the caboose this time. There's Pyro talking about Destro stuff. You can go follow him on Twitter. Oh my goodness. Twitter at
wherever you have them at.
Pyromancer Sarge. Yeah, it's a lower third, all right. It's below you. It's right there. Jeez, it's weird. Yeah, it is. There you go. There you go. Thank you for being on the show again, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
What? Oh, okay. Then Terryn has a message.
Draw it backwards.
Is
It's
it-
backwards. I forgot cameras.
His,
flip
his
things.
screen
Oh
orientation.
no! What's your
Camera orientation.
message?
Just praise, guys. Just
Oh,
just praise.
jeez. There's
Praise
Terryn.
Dan.
You can go follow him on
Yes.
Twitter at Terryn_Fred, and of course you can poke him in the Discord and make sure he doesn't mess up on Simcraft. There's. Thank you very much for the first time, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
The more you harass me, the faster you get Simcraft done.
Oh.
That's true. That's true.
And there's Not. You can go follow him, of course, on Twitter at KnotsWarlock. And again, I'll link you to his week orders and stuff in the. Oh, chat's going sour, please, crazy, but
Sour please for what? Oh no.
I don't know what's happening. Probably because they wanted you to put back on the shades. There they are.
Oh, that shades are on.
I'll have to make sure the thumbnail for this episode is with you with the shades on, because otherwise they won't understand. So, thank you very much for watching. Again, you can follow the stream below the stream and stuff like that. Next week, again, is Rogue. Rogue next week. I do not have all the guests worked out for that, but it'll be Rogues. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook if you want updates on those, of course. So I'll get those figured out for you in the next couple of days. And then after that episode will be a pre-BlizzCon special with 2 or 3 nerds that you may or may not have seen before. We'll talk about BlizzCon and predictions and just have a good old time. And then after BlizzCon, I'll be sitting down with Novel and hopefully Nixium to talk about what happened at BlizzCon and all the hype when I get back home. So thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Trust in your... Oh, God. What is it called again? I looked in game. I couldn't remember. What's the coin? The reroll coin.
The curious coin?
No,
Oh,
the reroll.
No.
That's the bad coin.
That's the bad coin. I can't...
I don't know. I just
Seal
buy
of
them and
Broken
use them.
Fate.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Broken Fate? Is it Broken Fate?
Broken
Seal of
Fate.
broken gold. That's what I call
Seal
it.
of Broken Gold.
gold.
Well, Ian did say they want to make it better, so they want to make Broken Seals better. But you trust in the Seal of Broken Fates, everybody. Thank you very much for watching, and until next week. Bye. Wave by at the people. Wave by or yeah, that. Are you dabbing on my show?
Is it over?
Oh,
Are you gonna end it? Did you cut it?
oh boy.